Hello, and welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Cody Kinsey. I am a security researcher at Varonis, along with my good friend and fellow hacker, Killian, here to talk about the hacker news of the week. Killian, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, it's exciting to be back. I know I wasn't able to join last week because we were actually out at Black Hat together, and I was on a plane, I think, at the time. But that actually is a good question. So we were together at Black Hat, but you stayed for DEF CON. So tell me, we're going to deviate a little bit. What did you see that was awesome there? I didn't stay. I regretted a little bit, but I'm also still wiped out from Black Hat, so maybe I balanced it out.
Yeah, so I think at Black Hat, it's like the perfect mixing pot of corporate people, and then, as I like to call them, practitioners, people that are doing a lot of the security work. And they you can kind of tell about halfway through Black Hat, you start seeing people with blinky badges, and they're wearing a lot of black, and they're not in suits, and they don't look like feds. And it's okay, who are these new people, and what are their interests? And it's obviously that's when our CTF got slammed at Varonis. Is it started out with people booking demos and asking questions about sales, and then all of a sudden it was these people hey, what's your CTF? I want to try it. So those rowdy CTF people are the DEF CON crowd. And once you cross over to DEF CON, the only people you really see in suits are people going to the policy village, whatever else that are in government. So what's cool is while there's a lot of movers and shakers and stuff at Black Hat, you tend to see, deputies and people like that. When you go to Black Hat, you see the head of the NSA, other people coming out to see what's hot, what are people talking about, what kinds of things are getting attention amongst the people that really care about the details of this sort of thing. So something that might be a little bit too dry for Black Hat, or just not the right audience because it's too Black Hat. Ironically, they'll report on some of the really detail heavy, punk underground stuff that maybe is not having the best release, let's say, and maybe the company that is affected has not really responded or has been really cagey, and finally the researchers screw it, I'm just going to release this to Black Hat. Or sorry, at DEF CON, sorry. So you tend to see a lot more highly technical talks. The villages are really interesting. There's nothing really like the villages at Black Hat. The villages are self-organized areas that kind of represent the space that or the interests that they are covering. So that could be the vote hacking village, or that could be the packet hacking village for Wi-Fi hacking, or the IoT hacking village, the policy hacking village, a biohacking village. Those are all distinct areas that have their own showrooms, their own organizational groups, and then their own agendas for the conference. So there's talks that go through these individual villages that tend to be pretty high quality. And although there are big talks going on in general at the conference, like you would see at Black Hat, there's nothing like the actual villages mirrored at Black Hat. All the area that's reserved for vendors and stuff is fragmented into these interest groups, each one of which is represented by very well spoken experts about what they're interested in and how you could get started too. So all right, so some of my favorites this year, now that I've established the concepts of villages, the CTF village was one thing that had a lot of really interesting stuff, lots of games, lots of things, and one of my favorites was actually it was the Moonlighter was the name of it, which was a satellite that you could connect to and hack from just the conference floor. So one of my friends was able to actually download satellite imagery from the camera on the satellite while they were at the conference, playing the CTF game. So being able to hack a satellite was really, really cool and interesting. Let's see. We also had the soda machine. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
All right, so I'm gonna look it up really quickly. Shell on Demand. I think it's called the Shell on Demand application, or Shell on Demand appliance. Yes, there we go.
Okay.
Let me see if I can get a good photo of it. So we talked about this a little bit last time, but here it is. If you saw this, what would you think it does?
Well, I mean, looking at it here, it's advertising that it provides refreshing beverages, but I'm fairly certain that it distributes Linux flavors.
Yes, it
does.
does. So this is really cool because if you're doing a CTF, and this was located in like the CTF village, you probably need like a Linux instance or something to spin up and, you know, play the game. So by putting in a coin, this is actually hosting a number of servers on the inside of the soda machine. And when you put in your coins, it'll spin up an instance of Dr. Callie, or perhaps Debian Light, or Sparkling, or sorry, sugar-free BSD. Any one of these, it'll spin up an instance. It'll print out a little card that gives you the credentials for you to connect to it, and then you're off and running on your CTF. So that was really cool.
Oh, wow.
Less cool was the bomb threat, or the bomb incident that caused the conference to be shut down on Saturday night. And everybody was holding their breath because we weren't sure if it was going to open again on Sunday. If we were actually just not going to have a last day of con. But the Las Vegas SRT teams, aka the Gravy Seals, as they were affectionately called by the hackers there, were able to get in and like get everything handled in a relatively short period of time. So although a lot of the fun parties that were planned were canceled, it was still a really, really fun kind of thing. Let's see. Flashing vending machine. Okay, so if you're in the chat and you're wondering exactly what this does, it's actually inside this vending machine is a bunch of servers. So these servers can be provisioned by pressing one of these buttons and you know, like putting in a couple coins, and it will provision you an internet connected like Debian server and print out a little card for you to then go to your terminal and SSH into it and then begin playing the CTF. So it's actually like, this is actually a server rack that is in the shape of a soda machine. Apparently someone in our chat bought a Dr. Callie. That's super cool. I would like, honestly, I think this is one of the most creative things I've seen at the conference. This was, I guess, the second year of having this at DEF CON, but it's just one of those, like, you know, you see it in the corner of your eye and you're like, oh, a soda machine. That's nice. You go up to it thirsty, and then you end up with a virtual machine capable of, you know, winning you a prize at one of the CTFs. So perhaps not very refreshing in all cases, but definitely a nice surprise for hackers that were going there to try to, you know, hack a CTF. So what else happened there?
I'm not gonna lie, I love that. I love that. That's so cool.
No, for real. Like being able to take something and functionally make it, you know, like a new installation. Like this is like kind of hacker art at its finest. And also it's purely functional. Like having a big server rack just out there, like looking lame. Like these things are already designed to refrigerate, you know, the thing inside of them. So being able to host a bunch of server racks, like extremely creative and very cool execution. So this is just the kind of thing that you tend to see at at DEF CON and not at Black Hat.
Right.
All right. Okay. Actually, yeah, I think you're right. That was in the chill out room, which was directly across from the CTF village. So yes, I remember a little bit of walking, getting from one point to the other. All right. So what else happened at Black Hat and DEF CON? So a lot of people got COVID. So far, 50% of the team that was working directly across from us in the vendor area at No Starch Press has tested positive for COVID. I saw on Twitter today. And then some people from the booth that we were at also tested positive. So far, remarkably, nobody on my team who was out there, which is 7 people, has tested positive for COVID, but a lot of other people did. So I was masked the entire time. I was like quite aggressive about that, and only one person, who is ironically a friend of mine, was like, "What's something wrong with you? Why are you wearing a mask?" It's like, I just don't want to get sick. I just talked to like 1,000 people today.
Sure.
But so far so good. Just a little worried about that because I've been seeing a lot of tweets about people who ended up getting sick at the conference. Of course, it's no big surprise. Like it's big conference full of people that traveled from all over the place, all mixing together. But it seems like we had gotten lucky, and I just want to thank also everyone who did come up to the booth and didn't give me any grief about wearing a mask at the conference, and sometimes being the only one doing it. So appreciate that. So also I did a badge game. So this was something that took quite some time to do. I went into the whole process last time, but basically almost everybody that I knew in my entire life came together over the course of 3 months to make this badge a reality. We ended up selling out of them, and they started out with this like goofy prototype that I made to test out the idea 3 months ago. I shipped this out to my friends and then started testing out with the Flipper Zero to see if I could like turn on and off the TV using a captured remote signal. And then we got into production. So fun fact, we were all actually going to go with this version instead that had the the blaster moved to a different area, but we decided that maybe that was a bit much. So in the end, this is the design we went with. But there was a bunch of other designs that we kind of considered before going into this. After doing that, we got our first prototype, and we were really worried that the power wasn't going to work. So we had this LiPo charging circuit for like a long-lasting, cool, rechargeable LiPo battery, but then also this big outline for a bunch of AA batteries as well, which actually worked. So put that together, got it to work. There was no pixel art, but I just made some AI generated stuff and tried it out, and everything seemed to be working. And then I sent our prototypes off to our developers to start working on the software. We got our final version like right before I actually went out to our New York trip, which feels like a million years ago, but was actually like less than a month ago.
Yeah, very, very recently.
So at that point, I got to get all of my friends together into Null Space Labs, which is, if you haven't seen it before, this is the Los Angeles hackerspace where I spend most of my time when I'm in LA. It's huge, as you can see, and everybody, including Angelina, who's been on the show several times, Irish, who's famous for our Irish Tracker episode, and then Brandon, our friend who has been working on the software, plus Nick, who used to be on the Nullbyte channel. This was just day one of our Nugget night. We had a full-on other Nugget night with even more people who came by to the space. Soldered them together, got everything working, had to flash them the morning of the conference because that's when the software was done. And in the end, had a huge reception for it. Lots of people were lining up and buying them at the vendor area at Hacker Warehouse. And it was great. It was super cool. This is also something I was kind of testing out to see, is this something that would like do well at Black Hat? Like if all those like corporate people found like a little version of this game that they could run around and zap each other, like would they think that was cool? Would they enjoy it? So I think the answer is probably yes. And looking at something we could do on a like a low budget at Black Hat is kind of my idea, to see if this idea was so popular at Black Hat, like will people think that it's cute at DEF CON, or sorry, at Black Hat too? I keep getting the two confused because they were back to back. They're like almost the same experience for me. But yeah, so this was a fun little game we were able to prototype in a very short period of time. And from concept to execution and like having this actually done and at the conference was a trip. We are kind of part of the like the Badge Life Society that makes these custom badges and custom experiences for DEF CON, just to bring something neat to the community and like be able to bring all our friends together to work on something big. So it was super cool being able to put this out and be able to have this kind of like, you know, zap each other.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So that was kind of my take on DEF CON. There was a lot of stuff that happened there. I enjoyed being able to work with all my friends, and also, of course, to see you and all the other Varonis people. I will say also, the Varonis people were running wild at DEF CON. They were so excited. So our security researchers, you know, do all sorts of crazy stuff. You know, they do a lot of like very technical research, which is often like too dry really for like some of the conferences we go to, like Salesforce or whatever. But they realized after going to DEF CON that like, you know, the people at DEF CON are going to eat this up. So our whole security team was like super energized and seemed to like want to go back and present and like represent us like a lot more. So that was cool, because I feel like now that I finally got a couple more Varonis people to go to Black, I almost did it again, Killian, to DEF CON instead of Black Hat. They really started to understand like how we could make an impact there. So lots of cool stuff. You can see also, this was my friend Shota, like picked up one of our badges. This is the kind of stuff that was that people were snapping up at DEF CON. A lot of these very unique badges, also of course some fun hacker tools like the Flipper. But being able to get your hands on all these like cute, interesting, and unique electronics is kind of what makes this special. Oh yeah, and then last up, I told you about the cyber camp I did last month. We made these Meow Mixer badges, and like they were very popular amongst the kids. Wait, Killian, why are you so small? Have you been this small the whole time? I'm so sorry for that. There you go. I've upgraded you. But yeah, so this little badge I thought might be, you know, marginally interesting at DEF CON. So I brought like maybe 100 or so, and we sold out like that. Like I like ran out of resistors. I was like running around trying to find more resistors for them, and it turns out that people just really like having like a good experience and being able to like like put something together themselves that's easy, simple, and straightforward. So super fun. Again, want to shout out to everybody who stopped by and said hello. A lot of people have been watching this show, and I got to turn on some other people that were Nullbyte fans to the show. So yeah, very, very cool to get to meet some of you and hear your stories about how our content either helped you out, get started into, you know, your hacking career, or how it has piqued an interest in general. So yeah, really, really enjoyed all of it. That was I was gonna say, it was fun. I actually met some of your fans and supporters from your in-person
classes that you did out in LA too. I had a couple nice conversations with some folks. So that was nice to see people coming out live to that. I also want to mention, James said that there was an Aloha Locksmith conference. One of the vendors at Black Hat actually had a lock picking. I'm not sure. It's not a demonstration, but they had a little. I was like so close to going over and try it, but we were there working, so I didn't want to take up time from other people who are potential customers. But I was really tempted. I haven't done that in a long time, and I miss it. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Man, I actually went ahead and took some pictures of what I consider to be like really excellent, like hacker aesthetic things that were like really cool, or that I thought were like really impactful, that happen at DEF CON and don't happen at other hacking conferences. So okay, all right, I'll show a little bit more, you guys. We do have a lot of news to go through, but it's okay. DEF CON is new. So this was my footage from DEF CON, getting to see the big wall that I think the casino finally asked us to put up so we would stop slapping stickers on stuff. But and this was the satellite that you got to hack. Like, that was super cool. But I think these are one of the coolest things. So this looks like it's just like a decorative like table display. It's all like cyberpunk and stuff, but it's actually like a lockpicking challenge. It's like a little lockpicking CTF. And if I were to zoom in, which I hope I guess, oh yes, the zoom in, yes. There are actually locks on here. Like, you can see one right here. There's a couple other like locked on, and the challenge is to like try to unlock this thing and win a prize. So the first thing I went back and said is like, hey, if we're doing like table pieces or whatever else, can we have a couple that are just lock picking CTFs and a couple like toolkits around, and have that be just like a really easy passive CTF that people can work on while they're hanging out at our booth? Because like, there's a lot of times at DEF CON where like you're overstimulated, maybe you don't want to have a conversation, you just want to sit down and work on something. And I think that that's really cool to be able to appeal to people that maybe are a little burnt out and want to like take a second to like collect themselves, and maybe work on something that is fun and relaxing. So this also, I consider soldering also to be fun and relaxing, but there's the burning yourself element that like kind of makes it a little bit more of a liability. So this one at least gives people a fun and relaxing thing to sit down that also kind of doubles as a nice little piece of decoration. So I was enchanted by this. I thought it was like super cool for people that are wanting to participate, but maybe not wanting to engage all the time.
Yep, I get it.
So, okay, another thing at DEF CON, there was these pop-ups that a bunch of people with iPhones were getting. So let's talk about that. So a lot of people were very concerned that they were getting their, oh, and sorry, there was a question I put up. What IR wavelength is it using? I don't remember. We are using a Arduino example for this particular IR LED. So I can, if you jump on our Discord server, I'm sure I could get you some technical specifications, because the people that helped me design this are on our Discord server. So I thought I was the only one who enjoyed soldering that much. No, I think you'll find that a lot of people find soldering to be one of those things where you can just kind of like, once you set the plan, you can just zone out and just like do a soothing activity for long periods of time. So no, I don't think you're the only one that likes soldering that much. It's just like, do people like it enough to get accidentally burned if they zone out too much? That's the question. I do. I tend to forget about burning injuries pretty quickly. All right, so let's talk about these iPhone pop-ups. So this was something where our one of our friends was saying he'd been messing with this for like a good amount of time and wished that he'd kind of spoken up about it. But a lot of people were getting pop-ups on their phone telling them to use their Apple ID to connect to an Apple TV or to share a password with an Apple TV nearby. So what this means is that somebody had figured out a way to emulate an Apple TV or an Apple device and use a supported protocol that didn't require authentication to pop something up on people's phones. Now, because it was asking about passwords, if you were to just absentmindedly just press the yes button or hit it by accident, then it would in fact share a device from your iPhone to another nearby device, which is obviously a security concern. But this was actually done something that was done by a security researcher who wrote a Mastodon post on it that said it was something that was designed to show off this, I guess you could call it a vulnerability, but it is something that is possible on Apple devices using a trusted protocol that doesn't require authentication. So in order to disable these, you need to turn off Bluetooth via the settings application. Now, some people want to have Bluetooth on like all the time. They want to have their headphones running. They want to have it connected to their watch or something like that. So turning off Bluetooth is frankly something that a lot of people just aren't going to do. So while this is the recommendation for a lot of these Bluetooth-based vulnerabilities, for a lot of people in their digital setup, like if you have a smartwatch or something, it's not that smart if you turn off your Bluetooth.
Right.
So it is annoying to have these pop-ups, happen, especially if they involve passwords. So there's like kind of a real consequence there to leaking real information if you were to mess up and accidentally press yes. But I mean, primarily here is just to be aware of what the trade-off is for having Bluetooth on all the time. It means that some of these protocols that are baked into the phone that don't require authentication can be triggered pretty arbitrarily. And while it doesn't look like there was a real attempt to exploit passwords here or try to like gather passwords from the attack, it was kind of a way of showing people that there is a lot of things you can do to interact with iPhones just using Bluetooth. And then if you don't turn that off, you're kind of just signing up to be bothered with stuff like this and should kind of be ready for it, because that's what happens when you have Bluetooth on all the time. And there are protocols that can do these pop-ups, prompting you to do pretty sensitive things like share like contacts or share passwords with just like an open source device. Yeah, that's about it. So.
I was going to say, the thing that I took away from this more than anything else is, one, the lockdown mode is nice. It's nice that Apple provides that. But the fact that even if you think you're turning it off in the, I'm not an Apple user, so I guess control panel, or whatever it's called, like doesn't actually turn it off even though you might think it does, which is a user education issue. Like you can actually turn it off, but it's annoying that you have to do two different things to actually turn your thing off. So I don't think the audience here would not know that, but that's something that, grandma or a normal person probably wouldn't, which gives, I think, a false sense of security, which is I'm not thrilled by it as a security practitioner, but do better, Apple.
Oh, also, so one thing that I was doing at DEF CON was I was a goon for the first time this year. I was staff at the conference, so that means you get a red shirt, you get a little bit of training, and then you are expected to donate a certain amount of hours to the conference. I was doing press tour, so like walking them through the villages, getting them introduced to everybody. But I was also working with Melanie Ensign, the person who is in charge of the DEF CON press room. So it's funny that this article says that when asked whether the conference organizers had seen the pop-ups themselves or whether they had been reported to them by attendees, DEF CON spokesperson Melanie Ensign simply sent a link to the Mastodon post. That is indeed the Melanie that I know. So yes, this was definitely caused a little bit of a stir. There's always people looking for like a scary 0-day dropping at DEF CON ever since that Broadpond thing happened like years ago. But yeah, seems like not this year. It was more of like a spook and an experiment than an actual like mass exploitation of anything.
Right.
All right. So I'm actually going to start on the end here because there's a lot of things that I think are bigger on this end. So I do not use Windows that much. Killian, confirm this for me. Windows still does not natively support opening a zip file. Is this true?
Zip files, yes. RAR files, no, I don't believe. And if you're using like GZ files, I don't believe either. But zip natively, absolutely. Okay. But WinRAR is still around. That's taken me back.
Okay. So I thought that for some reason this article seemed to imply that there was a lot of like reasons to use like WinRAR just based on what Windows could and couldn't natively do. So it's RAR files then that it can't do. Okay,
right.
Got it. Yeah. All right. So I got scared for a second because I'm like, if it can't do zip files, like then you're truly in trouble. But okay, so I was wrong. This is just RAR files, but still, what the vulnerability here appears to be is that if you are using WinRAR, you can accidentally have arbitrary code triggered if you are to just unzip something. So typically like zipping or compressing something is used as a technique to make it harder to scan for malicious stuff. So typically like security scanners can't really get very far into like zipped or compressed files. And that's why it is used for obfuscation all the time. The idea here though, is that instead of merely obfuscating malicious code, it will actually run it as soon as you unzip it. So typically you would need to like unzip something and then run something that you had just unzipped. Right. But this actually removes a step for the adversary and makes it so that they can run arbitrary code when you're just unpacking this compressed file. So it's kind of elegant because you're getting two benefits as an attacker in one attack. You're getting the benefit of hiding the malicious code and making it difficult to detect through obfuscation, but also the ability to execute just when somebody, tries to unrar rather than unzip a particular file. So of course you still need to trick somebody into like doing this, but with the social engineering attack and with how many people are used to using WinRAR, it's not that difficult, I would imagine, to get people to unrar something. Right. And even if they don't click on it, it doesn't matter because it means you could have already infected them.
But I think it's fixed now too. I believe the article said that they had a patch out already, or there it is. Actually, it's right above where you're at. version 6.23 addresses it. So if you're using a if you're using WinRAR, probably upgrade.
Okay, everyone, we need to pause the stream for a second because this guy is moving his car. So we'll be back. Okay, just kidding. Just kidding. It's recorded, bro. You'll catch up. It's fine. All right. So this one is merely funny. Hotmail has not been delivered today. This was reported on August 18th. It is still August 18th, and I have not seen an update on this article. I'm going to refresh it though and see, because I read this like an hour ago. So is there an update? Do we have it? No. They've asked for an updated change, but a reply was not available. So what is happening is that Microsoft has misconfigured DNS for Hotmail in a way that causes it to fail the sender protection framework check and be either just not delivered at all or sent to spam automatically when being sent to like Gmail accounts. So as of right now, it seems like this is still an issue. And just because I feel like so many people have had an issue like this and it ends up being DNS, it was DNS. So this is a DNS record that was updated for the sender protection framework that didn't include a key record, and that was causing delivery errors. They removed this from include SPF framework.outlook.com record from Hotmail's SPF record, causing anything going through outlook.com to fail. So this obviously is an issue for anybody who is sending email with Hotmail. I don't know how popular Hotmail is anymore. My mom uses it though, so there's certainly a generation that is entrenched in Hotmail who now has been silenced. So I imagine as Hotmail is still, top of mind for Microsoft, this will be resolved relatively quickly. And as it is DNS, it should be relatively easy to fix, but it might take some time to propagate. So this looks like an ongoing outage, again, caused by DNS, not any sort of like hacking activity, but at least as far as we can see. But yeah, so anybody who uses Hotmail might be having a hard day today.
Yeah, it's funny. I was going to say the reason that it hasn't been fixed is because all the old folks, grandma hasn't noticed, and probably if anything, spam's probably got cut down. But all jokes aside, it is interesting how much of the internet is reliant upon DNS. But how rarely I think most of us think about it in terms of like issues.
Yeah. No, in terms of like the way that everything on the internet finds each other, like the one class I took on networking taught me more about the way the internet works at scale than anything else I'd ever learned. It was like routing and switching was like a huge eye opener for me because it really like showed me how dependent we are on these DNS records and how if certain third-party companies went down, like we would be truly in trouble for being able to find or access a lot of our favorite sites. This is the most savage burn so far of the stream. Even Microsoft forgot about Hotmail. Roberto, that was cold.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
All right, next up. So this is like, I don't know why this was in the news, but it annoys me so much that I want to include it because I think that like it's actually useful. If you've ever had like the task manager up and like it's sorted by like something that keeps constantly changing and you just want to like click on something, seems like there's now a shortcut that prevents you from needing to do whatever dumb thing you've been doing in the past to get that to stop enough to click on one thing, and you can just press down the control key and it will freeze all those programs that are jumping around frantically. Look at this. How are you supposed to click on anything? It's all moving around. So in order to
listen, I love this. 100% of the time that I'm on my work computer, I have Task Manager open because this thing never behaves normally. So I want to see what it's doing. This is life-changing. I'm not going to lie. For primarily a Windows user, I love this. This is revolutionary.
Yeah, no, for real. I know on Mac OS, there's ways of like freezing this already, or at least I think there is. This, I was just like, why is this news? But like you said, this is definitely something that's going to be useful for anybody that's got tired of jumping around and trying to capture the Windows desktop manager or whatever as it's like moving around and jumbling itself. So little performance update that seems to be appreciated by a lot of people. So if you're a Windows user, congratulations. All right, so out of everybody at Black Hat, I have to shout out CISA for giving out the absolute best stickers. For a federal agency, they did a really good job of this. And it seems like they're coming into somewhat of a budget for like marketing and outreach, because they definitely had much more of a significant presence at Black Hat than any other federal agency that I saw did. I mean, Kayleen, did you see any other federal agency at Black Hat?
No, I expected to see like the FBI or the NSA or somebody else, but I didn't see them unless they were hiding.
Yeah, I walked all over the whole conference floor, and I frankly I didn't see the FBI, I didn't see the NSA, I didn't see any of the normal people that I see. But I did see CISA, and they had a huge space, and they were doing a lot of cool stuff, and their stickers were good. So I'm like, okay, this is the sign of an organization that is receiving funding and attention. So CISA, definitely an agency to keep your eye on. They're also like a lot friendlier because like they have like a, you know, they have a mandate to like help protect. They're like the firefighters of the cyber world. So like, you know, while the NSA and the FBI like get their certain share of controversy because, you know, they prosecute people, they throw them in jail, or they like attack foreign governments or whatever. Allegedly. CISA has like a pretty firefighter-y role. Like they sound the alarm, they try to help private businesses. They're a pretty like uncontroversial agency so far. Of course, they're also a very new agency. So I just see that like hacker enthusiasm for CISA tends to be like, you know, they're basically like given one of the hardest jobs like out of anything, which is to like force these other agencies that just like don't have their posture together to like comply with a couple critical things. So seeing this agency start to get more and more clout and more resources is actually really great, and I really appreciate like seeing them out and about. So okay, so we have another like managed file transfer vulnerability being tracked in the wild. It is known to be exploited, and that is bad news because anything like this tends to be really good news for ransomware actors. So like as reported here, where is it? The threat actor could upload a web shell and gain full access to the storage and all of its files, which kind of for ransomware groups like Clop means exploitation or extortion attacks by either ransomwaring everything and then, you know, trying to get money that way, or doing that plus extracting files and then threatening to release them seems to be the major concern here. There's no link to the CVE. Oh, here we go. So this is what I wanted to point out. This is a 9.8 out of 10. That is really, really bad, I think is the technical term.
Yeah. Yes, that's a pretty big number out of a, you know, pretty reasonable number. I'm probably patch this, I would say. Well, I don't know. Hopefully we catch this ahead of time, and now that it's been out there, I mean, I think we still have Clop articles to discuss in this one. We don't need another Clop. I mean, I think everybody in the world has free credit monitoring at this point from Clop, so let's patch that.
Yeah. Anytime as a hacker, I see the words manage file transfer vulnerability and then like CVE score of like more than 9. That to me is impending news, especially if it's already been said that it's been exploited by CISA. That means that this is going to be, I don't know if it's going to be as big as like some of the last, like, oh my gosh, like the stuff that we keep hearing over and over and over from like Clop ransomware's like last like exploit of this of these managed transfer vulnerabilities. But like you can expect to see the fallout from this to be in the news for the next several weeks if it is not patched basically immediately. So like, you know, prior experiences showed me that these are not patched immediately, and there's going to be a lot of companies that move slowly on this. And as a result, you're probably going to see a lot of these companies in the news in the next couple of weeks tracking on this Citrix share file storage zone vulnerability. So keep your eyes out for this. If you work with this product, you need to update it immediately. It seems like the flaw was an AES encryption. But yeah, seems like an incredibly severe vulnerability that it can be remotely triggered and impacts a very, very critical like supply chain style managed file transfer organization. So get that fixed immediately and keep your eyes out for news of exploitation in the following weeks. All right, so this is kind of just a ransomware or a cybercrime gang update. This is a group, Black Hat, that had gone dormant for, I believe, about 6 months or so after the main developer, I think I'm not confusing this with another group, was arrested. So it looks like they implemented a bunch of new features. One of them is using the Impacket framework. This is a open source framework designed to move laterally in compromised networks using a bunch of tricky like packet and routing techniques.
Yeah.
It also is using some new techniques like the Remcom hacking tool, which is, according to this, a small remote shell that allows the encryptor to remotely execute commands on other devices on a network. So that's going to be like for specifically like ransomware attacks. So just, another evolution in the way that these cybercrime gangs integrate up and coming open source projects into their ransomware toolkits. As these come out and things are really become popular in the hacker community, they frequently get integrated into these toolkits. And that's exactly what we're seeing again here.
Exactly.
All right, so this was first reported on Bleeping Computer. Sometimes when we talk about these like supply chain like issues, it's not actually a threat actor that is going in there and making the changes. Sometimes, for example, if you get somebody who's maintaining like an open source package and it's used by all these people, we've seen people rage out before because they're not getting any compensation for it and they don't want to maintain it anymore. Well, here's another way that these open source people who kind of burn out on their projects or just aren't getting enough compensation can end up kind of like poisoning something. Oh no, Killian's gone. Uh-oh. Well, all right, he'll be back. All right. So in this case, it looks like Mock, which was a very, very popular project that had been downloaded 476 million times over the course of its lifetime, updated itself to include another project called SponsorLink. Now, Killian has returned. Hello, Killian. Welcome back. All right, so I was just saying, this open source project suddenly, without telling anyone, included something called SponsorLink. And this is basically like tracking like adware that is able to gather information, or maybe I call it more like spyware almost, that's able to gather information about the people that are using it and report back. So this, while not explicitly illegal, definitely breaks user trust. And it means that anybody who is using the software in their code is basically unintentionally started tracking their own users and reporting it back to this company that is now in some sort of agreement with Mock. So this is, and Killian's gone again. Oh no. So this is particularly upsetting because this was a trusted project that a lot of people were using. They did not know that their user base would be subjected to tracking based on also the fact that the SponsorLink's DLL was obfuscated, which made it really difficult for them to go in and see exactly what this was doing. So as soon as this change was made, obviously a lot of people were pretty upset and were sounding the alarm that this is something that maybe you want to uninstall or not use. But yeah, certainly a pretty spooky thing to know that all of a sudden, after using this open source software for quite some time, it's all of a sudden tracking your users, and it's also doing it in a way that is deliberately obfuscated to make it difficult for people who are seeing this change to understand what those changes mean. So then I actually didn't read this part of the article, but apparently the person who added this explained that he made it version 420 so people wouldn't take it seriously.
Sure, that's something.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I sure. So apparently this was all one big joke, and everybody should have known that because the update version was 420. Wow, great. Okay, so at that point, I'm sorry. So yeah, this is just a really bad look for like an open source developer to have like modified the product that he created to suddenly start tracking. It arguably doesn't comply with GDPR, and there's a number of other things that could cause this to be a problem. Oh no. Oh, poor Killian. Yikes. It seems like Killian's having a little bit of trouble with his internet. But anyway, we'll forge on. I'm sure it will sort itself out. All right, so this is something that I've seen people talking about, and it was kind of my first time like learning about this tool, but it seems like an open source project called Merlin is gaining traction amongst all sorts of hackers, both security researchers and also black hats who have been targeting Ukraine in a series of attacks. So it's also very popular amongst red teamers to gain a foothold on compromised networks, and has support for HTTP over TLS, HTTP3, and a number of other useful features for anybody who wants to gain a beachhead and be able to attack a system. Hello, Killian. I'm sorry that your computer seems a little sick.
You know what? Because I was trash talking that my task manager here, and it says, "Oh, maybe I should see what's running."
Yeah, well, maybe that new trick will work, and you'll be able to prevent it from jumping around.
It does work. So there we go. I just tried it. So I have no idea what's wrong with my computer today.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next one. Mostly because I really enjoy that Bleeping Computer has started using Midjourney to create their headlines, because they used to be like such like random stock images, and now they're able to really have fun with it. This is Mustached Bouncer himself. And as a former bouncer, I have to say this has a lot of stereotypes involved, but I'll accept it. It is still better than some of the previous.
That's a powerful mustache. I'm in awe.
Yeah. James says that you're like that mole in the whack-a-mole game. You pop up and the internet just whacks you back down again. You poor thing. All right, so Mustache Bouncer is not in fact a new Mustache Bouncer. It is instead a adversary in the middle group that is attacking Belarusian ISPs to hack foreign embassies. So what does this mean? Well, okay, so we have a contender for our confusing chart of the week. This one seems to be a timeline, which is relatively straightforward, but we got victim A, victim C, victim. Okay, all right, so this it at least makes as much sense as like the new LA like a train station like system. So okay, I guess I can understand that. But the idea here is that somebody is hacking into internet service providers in Belarus and then rerouting things to pop up fake update pages so that it can execute like phishing attacks and other sorts of attacks against foreign embassies. So when you're in Belarus and your phone is connecting to an internet service provider there, it's very likely an adversary would be able to target you and start running attacks either with the complicity of the ISP or without their knowledge. Yeah, so that's pretty much the whole story. It's like if you connect to an ISP in Belarus, it's very likely that internet service. Oh, here we go. That looks way more confusing. Thank you. All right, so we have our targeted industry embassy. We have these Windows devices. It tries to go to a captive portal, msconnecttest.com. Redirects the DPI service, does something. We get a download somewhere. This is a real CNC server. Okay, that's cool. And then we get a fake update that gets dropped. Then
hey, what I will point out is a couple of instances of DNS in here, everybody. DNS is back.
Couple more downloads. Okay, this is officially my submission for most confusing graph of the week. I lose it pretty much as soon as we leave the targeted embassy. None of this makes sense to me anymore. There's a lot of downloads. We've got an ear going on. This is the DPI device at the ISP. We got some of these SMB and DNS. None of that's happening. All right, so yeah, that's the infection chain. So I find that these infection chain graphics from like security companies tend to be the most inscrutable graphs I've ever seen like reported in the news. So I do have to shout them out and then say that I appreciate those because they are very funny. All right, next up we have I hate to see this, industrial PLCs impacted by CodeSys v3 RCE flaws. So these are relatively severe. I think these are like 8 point something CVEs, which is obviously not good and allows for a number of different attacks, one of which is just a denial of service attack, which could be, depending on what that PLC is doing, enough to destroy something or enough to cause substantial problems. So this is a buffer overflow opportunity that allows attackers to then eventually, need to do some sort of like brute forcing to fully exploit. But the problem still is pretty severe, and I would say that a lot of these PLCs are not updated very frequently. That is a huge problem with these sorts of devices, is that they're frequently like running in an environment where they're protected or not allowed to be updated or upgraded without like substantial overhaul. So the fact that these just don't tend to get upgraded for a very long time is really why these particular vulnerabilities are so important. All right, that's all I got on that one. Let's go. I'm going to go to the other side here. I think we've got like 8 minutes or so. So let's go ahead and roll through. So there was recently an Interpol operation that was going through Africa, and they disrupted I kind of had to read this a couple times to believe it.
Yeah.
20,000 cybercrime networks.
That's
a
lot.
That's a lot. Yeah. So even if that's just people, like how many like are anyway, I barely understand that number. That's like how many people live in like a small town. So this must have been an absolutely massive operation. They were apparently responsible for financial losses of $40 million. And this had been just a lot of like malicious infrastructure, a lot of like credit card and like stealer kind of like operations, phishing links and documents, scam IP addresses, and then 400 malicious URLs, IP, and botnets. They also broke it down by country. 3 suspects arrested for $850,000 in an online art scam. Nigeria, one individual arrested for defrauding a single Gambian victim. All right. 2 money mules arrested. 185 malicious IPs taken down through proactive measures and partnerships. 2 darknet sites shut down, and 615 malware hosters taken down by authorities. What's interesting is like, of all the stuff that was like listed, that seems a little light for 20,000 cybercrime networks. But again, it just seems like a massive amount of like operations and other things that were executed to be a part of this. I think it was called like African Cyber Surge. Yes. That is attempting to take down some of these notorious organizations that are targeting people and victims worldwide and resulting in a lot of damages. Okay, so I was talking about compression and how it is able to evade scanning. And that's exactly what a bunch of malicious Android APKs were doing in order to thwart analysis. So even if you download an APK off of the internet, it's still going to be checked out and looked for certain characteristics that are malicious. And it's kind of hard to hide from this because Android phones have gotten smarter and they still do these checks no matter where the APK comes from. So, if you have a victim that downloads something outside of the Play Store, which gets more extensive checks, then it's still going to be subjected to the certain level of scanning. And one of the most common techniques to get around this is by compressing it in ways that are not supported. So if you tweak the compression algorithm so that it is no longer standard, sometimes it's just like, weird static data, can't read that, and it just moves on. And that is something that a lot of these malicious APKs are starting to use as an anti-analysis method. So that means just taking regular old compression, which already works pretty well, and tweaking it, changing things a little bit so it's no longer supported, so that the output would be erroneous or like not recoverable by standard tools. That will actually pass in a lot of cases. And a lot of these static analysis tools will either crash or otherwise just not complete the analysis and not warn the user about the malicious things that are inside this program. So the APK file is generally designed to be like pretty easy to scan. And this is a way of making it so that the scanner actually crashes when you are attempting to scan. And that will trigger it to not display any alerts. So pretty cool. Another note here is that rooting your Android device makes the user an administrator, which means that APKs can run at the highest privilege. So if you have considered rooting your phone, and a lot of people in our chat have encouraged me many times to do this, you are actually, if you were to install one of these malicious APKs, giving it the highest possible privilege on the device and subjecting yourself to even more grief. So that's kind of why I don't do it, but kind of an interesting find. I'm going to cover a different one because we're almost out of time. Oh my gosh, where is it? It was, I was just going to say there's another one that was funny and interesting because it took off from that exact same kind of thing where it was, betas. It was betas.
Yes.
Did I close that by accident?
I read it. I know I read it, but maybe it's toward the end. I mean, if you did close it, we can talk through it very quickly.
Yeah. So, Killian, what do you remember from that article while I dig around real quick?
Sure. So the interesting thing... Oh, here it is. There we go. Yeah, I was going to say, the interesting thing about this is that some of these attackers are trying to get around some of the controls by basically releasing the apps as beta, which inherently don't get as much screening apparently because they could potentially be flawed or they're not a full GA release. So just an interesting way to approach it. There it is, less thorough code review process. For the betas. pretty interesting that it's that they're taking this tactic. Ooh, this is a good graphic.
Yes. All right. I love how much I love the wall of text on this.
Yes.
In the first one. I also love it when like security people are like asked to make graphics and like just like make it crazy looking. All right. So fake app developer builds and submits app through service provider who in turn uses developer's license to submit to Apple for test flight certification. This usually happens with little review. Scammer directs victim over chat to a fake app web page to initiate download. Website takes victim to provider's store to install test flight to download, which requires no further. I'm going to be honest. I don't get it. Thanks, so
yeah.
I'll go back to this later and try to figure out like what all this means. But yeah, so just kind of an interesting way that the like a path of less scrutiny is always what people are looking for in order to infect devices. And this beta program or being able to push out something that is inherently going to get less scrutiny because it's meant only for like enthusiasts or people that are very, you know, like want to test out software that hasn't been fully maybe vetted or could include bugs or errors. That's definitely a user base that's going to be maybe a little easier to attack. Test flight equals the iOS version of side loading, I think. Yes, I believe that is what that is.
Yeah, because I mean, I haven't done any like actual development in a really long time, but I know for iOS development, there are ways to run your own custom stuff that without going through it, even if you're not planning to be a full developer. So maybe this is what it's called now. It's been so long that I don't think it was called test flight back in the day, but then again, maybe it was.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So a couple of things we can cover really fast. LinkedIn is being targeted in a widespread hijacking campaign. And if you've ever like worked with LinkedIn, you might know that like their customer service is a little slow. And this is being amplified by the fact that there's a 6,000%, or was it 5,000 or 6,000% increase in people searching for help on getting a compromised LinkedIn account fixed. So there's a number of different like phishing scams that are attempting to like target 5,000, 5,000% increase in Google Trends searching for LinkedIn hacked or LinkedIn account hijacked. The thing that's interesting here is that the people that are taking over the accounts using credentials or brute forcing attacks are transferring the email over to a rambler.ru service and then setting up two-factor authentication on the account. So that means that in order to like get this back, you would need to go through a whole process because at this point, you know, you can't prove that you are who you say you are, and full authentication has been, I would say kind of robust authentication has been switched over to the attacker. In some cases, it looks like the attackers are requesting a ransom to give it back. It's unknown how much these people would pay for access back to their LinkedIn account. But either way, it is problematic. And it is, as I said, made even worse by a very, very slow response from LinkedIn's customer support. All right, what else can we do quickly?
I was going to say the very first one's a good one then, too.
This one?
RIP Anon files.
Yeah.
I only have experience with this because I believe one of our attack labs that our security researchers at Varonis did a few years ago, it was a fully real attack. Cody, I think you and I might have even done this on a stream where we executed some custom ransomware code that our security researchers did, and I believe we used Anon files to really exfiltrate the sample data from these labs. And that's why I know it primarily. But why would anybody be surprised that a file sharing service deliberately called Anon files and designed to not record anything would be abused by people looking to do nefarious things? Who would have thought?
Yep. Yeah. So if even our researchers were using it as just like a step in like a cybercrime event, then yeah, the level of abuse here was pretty crazy. So it seems like the people who ran it are now offering it for sale. I bet some security research company is going to buy it and just be like, yeah, everything's the same. And then on the back end, just be like, provide threat intelligence based on darknet chatter. But it's actually just people like uploading stuff to
Cody, did you just come up with a great business plan?
I've just seen so many cybersecurity companies that like either buy data from hackers on the darknet or like provide like almost like provide infrastructure for them and then like monitor it.
Right.
You know, like they make money and it doesn't seem like they're getting prosecuted. So it seems like there's like kind of a gold rush for companies that have figured out that they can really like push it when it comes to like what's legal and what's allowed in order to get like like real-time threat intelligence or whatever. I would never do it personally because it seems like a terrible idea and it didn't end well for the you know, for the people who were running the service before. But maybe if like, you know, this was purchased by a front for the CIA, it would suddenly be a profitable organization again. Who knows? All right. I think we're pretty much out of time. If there's any other really short, let's see. Ford is selling a car that has Wi-Fi vulnerabilities, but says it's still safe to drive. You can cause a buffer overflow and you could potentially do remote code execution, but it says the vehicle driving safety isn't impacted. There's a lot of vehicles that are impacted by this. You can
catch your Ford. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can trigger it using a buffer overflow with a specially crafted frame. So it looks like they're going to offer a patch but you'll have to do it for download and installation via USB. So you can expect these cars to remain vulnerable probably forever, as far as I can imagine.
So most of the modern ones have auto updaters built into them. I no longer do, but I had a Ford and I could connect it to my Wi-Fi and have it check for updates, which was always nice because it would update occasionally on me. But yeah, if you are not using that, usually inside like the glove box or the center console, there is a USB port to update, and they'll do it at the dealership too occasionally. So I guess if anybody's driving a Ford out there, when they release it, if you're not comfortable, take it to the dealer. They'll do it for you.
Yeah. The fact that you got to do it, and the fact you got to do it over USB, at least in some cases, to me is funny because that's just an extra step. Like nobody wants to plug their USB drive into their car.
Right.
So okay, this is another one we can cover really quickly. Like this is such a mean thing to do. It's such a like a reverse attack. So there's an increasing cybercrime trend of pretending to be a like recovery service for cryptocurrency.
Right.
So if you get hit by like a cryptocurrency like thief, then this other company will take your money to go and pretend to try to recover it. So they'll be like, okay, we got access to your funds. Now we just need your wallet information so we can deposit it back into your wallet. And then they'll just take anything you have left in your wallet after the original amount was taken. So yeah, it seems like cybercrime is so prevalent now that there's another layer of cybercrime on top of the cybercrime. And that being like extorting people that have already become victims of cybercrime because they're perceived to be, I guess, prime targets, or at least maybe a little gullible.
I mean, I feel like there's a missed opportunity to call this like the Exhibit ransomware group. There's a throwback for people of a certain age that remember Pimp My Ride.
Yeah, if you also want to see a whole bunch of these scams, you can just use all of these keywords in a Twitter post, and it will summon the bots to like arrive and like try to sell you various services. You can always tell how healthy a bot ecosystem is by using a bunch of key trigger words in a Twitter post and seeing how many automated replies that you get. Okay, we are now 5 minutes over. I think that's most of all the stuff we're going to cover today. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff also because we ended up skipping the Friday stream just because DEF CON was too intense. There was too much stuff going on, but altogether a very fun DEF CON, lots of stuff happening. And hopefully now that all of our security researchers at Varonis are all fired up to go to DEF CON, it'll be a little bit easier to get a hotel and get approval to go next year. Right, Killian?
Yes.
Cool.
I feel like we've had this conversation for the last 3 or 4, however many years.
Yeah, but now that we got a bunch of like hackers in our company who are going to insist we go, you know, they're going to need some video, they're going to need some support. I'm sure we could contribute. I'm sure we could find some ways to get it like written off by the company.
I'll hold a tripod or a monopod, you know, whatever.
All right, so that is going to be it for our show today. A big shout out to Varonis for not only sending both Killian and I to those last hacker conferences, but also to continually supporting the show and letting us work on it. If you want to support the show, you can go to varonis.com/Cody. That's KODY. They do check to make sure that people are actually going to that link and that the show is, like getting people to check things out at Varonis. And you'll see me linking to the latest stuff we have on Varonis at that link. I will be back live again on Wednesday for our next live hacker Q&A. And you can also check out our Discord community, which I will post in the chat in just a second. If you want to continue the conversation after the show, we've had a lot of really great people jumping on after DEF CON, actually. So seeing all those people who maybe just grabbed one of our things for the first time or ran into me at DEF CON and heard me talking about the live stream was really, really cool. I am dropping that in the chat now. And hopefully we see all of you on our next stream. I think also next Wednesday, I'm going to be having Angelina back on because she's going to be hosting 2 different classes. She is going to be hosting an in-person class at Nullspace Labs coming up, and she will also be doing an online version of her satellite hacking class. A lot of you guys really wanted to attend, but weren't able to be physically present in Los Angeles, and her class was sold out in LA. So we'll have her on next week to talk about satellite hacking and how you can attend her next class if you're interested. And it's going to be really cool. So Killian, thank you for hanging out with us today.
Thank you.
And we will see all of you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.